All right. Good evening, everybody. Here it's Monday, January 24th. Welcome to another episode of Jackman Radio. I'm your host, Eric Jackman, and I am psyched tonight to welcome a guest who I've been following a lot more closely lately. I first heard of her through my friend Reed Coverdale, our mutual friend, and that is Olivia Rondeau. Olivia, thank you so much for joining Jackman Radio tonight.
Thank you for having me. And I'm kind of like worried since you know me through Reed what he said about me. I just want to defend myself preemptively and say that if it's bad, then it's not true. If it's good, then it is true. So
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, it's basically nonstop trash. I mean, he's just got miles and miles in that truck where he just has time to talk on that headset. So he'll call me, and probably the first half hour of every call is just saying how horrible of a person you are, and
Yeah.
just how garbage your takes are, and all that kind of stuff. So
I figured it was something like that. So I just wanted to put that disclaimer out for your viewers who also follow Reed because he is constantly lying on my name. So I just wanted to put that out there.
good old Reed, we gotta love him. Yeah, he's been doing awesome work, and he's introduced me to a lot of people I hadn't heard of before. So appreciative of that. That's how I heard of you. So yeah, for my viewers and some people who might not know about you, who is Olivia Rondo and what does she do?
So I consider myself to be a kind of conservatarian. I guess that would best describe my ideology because a lot of libertarians will view me as like, oh, she's one of the good conservatives, and a lot of good conservatives will view me as like, oh, she's one of the good libertarians. So I think that just goes to show that both groups have people that somewhat claim me in them, and both groups have people that somewhat view me as the other side, but still somebody they can talk to. And I really don't have a label that fits me 100%. So I feel like that's the best way to describe myself. As to what I do, I write, I make videos, I do public speaking, I commentate, uh, I work on campaigns. I basically have done every job in a campaign, from like knocking doors to talking to donors to you know, writing press releases to booking interviews and stuff for my candidates. So I've basically worked in kind of almost every facet of electoral politics and in political media at this point. And yeah, I don't know. When people ask me like, "Oh, what is your end goal with this? You're going to run for office?" I'm not sure of that yet. I'm kind of just looking to advance my personal philosophy, which surrounds liberty or is surrounded by liberty through any means necessary, or through any means that I see fit. I guess I should say.
Right, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm not big on political labels either. I've heard you say in other interviews and talks that you're an independent, and you never were registered with a political party, correct?
That is correct. That's still true. I understand this a little bit confusing because I'm also a member of the Libertarian Mises Caucus, but for people who don't know, you don't have to be an LP member to be a Mises Caucus member. So the reason I joined that was basically just because I saw that this was a caucus that had a lot of people that were very similar to me, people who the mainstream LP were calling like conservative, right wingers, fascists, racists, blah, 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 blah. So I, like several people in that caucus, I think it was basically like Reed Coverdale and Clint Russell that kind of pushed me in that direction. Also, Maj Toure, another good member of the caucus. So I was influenced by people who I think very similarly to, who are also kind of sometimes considered to be black sheep, depending on who you ask. So that was my reason for joining that. But my reason for not joining any particular political party yet, I'm not totally closed off to it, but I think that as somebody who is just naturally very independent minded, I was kind of, I've just been disenchanted with registering as a party. But if it comes to the point where I feel like, hey, this is gonna best, help me further liberty, if I register in the LP and I get to, contribute to sending somebody down to Reno or something of that nature, like that might be something I do in the future. I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, political parties are tough. I mean, I've been in and out of them. '04 was the first election that I could vote, and I was young. My brain was pretty mushy, so I considered myself a Democrat, and I registered as a Democrat and supported John Kerry in that election. And I
That's
got
really mushy.
yeah, it's not good. Hey, my brain wasn't fully formed, so I get a little pass
Neither
there.
is mine. You don't get an excuse.
Touche, touche. And I supported his campaign and got him to come to my high school. He came in on a helicopter the day before the '04 primary and did a huge event. And stood behind him and was all in. So, like a lot of people say, when you get to college, it's like, oh, you're gonna become even more liberal than you are and go far left. Well, I actually ended up being introduced to libertarianism through Ron Paul, because that was just before the '08 election was ramping up, and I started seeing signs all over New Hampshire for Ron Paul, like who is Ron Paul and that kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, who the hell is that? I've never heard of this guy with two first names. You don't know if you can trust a guy that has two first names. A lot of people vary on that, if you can or can't. Do you think you can?
Mm.
Do you think you can or you can't?
That's never really been a factor to me on who I decided to support or trust, I have to say.
Yeah. So Ron Paul's campaign in '08 really introduced me to libertarianism, all the ideas and philosophies, and it was really eye opening. It was really eye opening. So what was it for you that was the like gateway or first experience with the idea of even hearing the term libertarian or libertarian ideals?
It was probably 2020 when I first started to, follow and take interest in the liberty movement. I was still pretty much on the Trump train at that point. Like I said, I do lean conservative. I don't consider myself to be like a pure libertarian, and people would get pissed off at me if I did say I'm a libertarian. So just tossing that out there. Um, but this was at a point where I was surrounded by majority, conservative politics, and most of my friends I had met through politics were conservative, right wing, and the and I would find people to follow on Twitter all the time, and I started seeing Reed's posts in the beginning of 2020. I started seeing David Feit's posts, Spike Cohen's posts, Dave Smith's posts, and honestly, I hate to say it, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I really genuinely feel like my timeline and people I had just followed on social media or had seen on Twitter really influenced me into kind of opening my eyes and inspired me to research libertarianism even more. And I found out that I kind of already agreed with a lot of the philosophy. There was really not a huge switch in my beliefs, but I just found that the label of liberty fit me more than like Republican, MAGA, all those other liberals or all those other labels on the right wing. So I would say that it was less of a switch up between from my ideology. It was definitely gradual. Like when I first got into politics, um I didn't know much about what was considered to be liberty or not. So I would say that I would agree with something that Trump said about like, I don't know, like tax cuts. And I'd be like, wow, that's conservative. And I didn't realize that taking it even further and being consistent with those tax cuts would be like libertarian. So, like I said, I just kind of found that group from Twitter and realized that it fit my ideology a little bit more. But I couldn't go all the way. There's still some things I agree with the Republicans on more than libertarians. So that's why I haven't registered one way or the other.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, and I think a lot of Americans overall are that way. I mean, the media and the press and even social media would have us believe that we're all just rigid and dug into our sides and we're not going to budge at all on anything. And when you just go out in public or people and you're out and about, I mean, people for the most part are actually very reasonable. We're not these hysterical, ideological, dug in monsters that social media and the algorithms put out and perpetuate. So I think that's refreshing. And yeah, I mean, I've gotten flack. There was stuff Trump did that I loved, that I was very supportive of. Obviously, him meeting with Rocket Man when he did, and with North Korea and not bombing them and not overthrowing Rocket Man and launching regime change and occupying North Korea was good, because the alternatives to what Trump was talking about, that's what they were. They were violence and more war and destruction. And, I applauded Trump when he did that. And then, to kind of stay consistent with how I'm very anti-war, I'm very against imperialism. When really the only one thing I like that Brandon's done since he's been president for a year was getting us out of Afghanistan. And
Yeah, and
I
even that was completely botched. I'm glad we got
oh,
out, and it
oh
was like But for me, at some point, it was like we've already been there for 20 years. If it takes 3 more months to plan a pullout, properly, then let's take those 90 days or however many, weeks or months, because it was getting to a point where it was just ridiculous. And yes, it needed to happen, but we were there for so long, way too long, to not have an effective plan to pull out. So that did make me angry.
Oh yeah, I won't argue at all that the pullout and the exiting was a complete disaster and abject failure. But to just the end of what it was that we were out of there, and Brandon, whether it was Brandon or people around him who just he held firm on it, and we did get out of there. I did give him credit for that, and that got me a lot of hate from people. So what happens is these times when you're an independent, when you like something one side does and you cheer for it, you get shit, and then when you do it with the other side, you get shit from everybody. So it's like, I don't know. I just don't like the tribalism of politics. And I feel like people are more reasonable than most would realize, do you find that in your experiences? Because what I wanted to touch upon too, I know you were out at all these marches. You had a busy weekend with the March for Life, and then the anti-mandate rally there with Bobby Kennedy Jr. I mean, what was the sense you got from being out there at these rallies?
Well, first, I agree with your sentiment that people, are definitely more moderate than what social media and what mainstream media would have you believe. Because, for example, yesterday when I was at the Defeat the Mandates rally, there were several signs and groups there from people who were not right wing at all. I saw a sign, I took a picture of it actually, that said, "Vax Democrat for medical freedom," or "against mandates," or something to that message. And I posted it, and people were in the comments like, "Oh, sheep, we don't care. You're the one that voted for him. This is your fault." And I'm just like, we don't know who this person voted for. If they feel so strong about anti-mandates, maybe they didn't even vote for Biden. Maybe they didn't vote for these people. Maybe they're just a registered Democrat. Maybe they voted for a different Democrat in the primaries that didn't win. Like we just don't know. And I'm really against calling people sheep who are, on our side in some regards, even if they're a registered Democrat. I don't care if you're against mandates, if you're against tyranny. I'm willing to talk to you about, hey, why are you voting Democrat? Because maybe we should incorporate some things into like the LP or the Republican Party to get your vote. Because I know people who vote Democrat, for drug decriminalization. That's something that I support too. So if talking and building coalitions with those types of people can bring them over instead of calling them sheep and telling them, to get out of the party, get out of the movement, would cause more people to be on our side, then I'm all for it. So yeah, there's definitely more moderates than people would think, and more people that agree with them than people would think.
Yeah, 100%. And I looked at the episode of Pause that you were on with Sam J, and I think we can connect that to a really great statement. You said that the Republicans and the conservatives, by and large, need to drop the anti-gay marriage thing from their platform completely. And I absolutely agree with that. I mean, the hyper focus on social issues like that and keeping that red meat out there just for the sake of raising money for election cycles and keeping those older kind of boomer Republicans who still care about that issue involved in their purse open, that's going to die out eventually. And like you said, bringing more people to your cause who it might just be one issue that they would be willing to come over, but they're hung up on one other issue that might be stopping them. I think that's a very good example of that.
And people will tell me, well, what are you even conserving? How are you conservative and you want to change the Republican Party and you want to make it more socially liberal or whatever have you? I'm just like, I am not conserving, evangelicalism. I'm not conserving, what your idea of traditionalism is. I think what people get confused about is when I say I'm conservative or I'm conserving something, I want to conserve the basic American values of freedom from tyranny and freedom from the state enforcing their values on you. I mean, people started this country because they were freeing religious persecution. So how could we sit here and say that, oh, we're gonna return to persecution based on religious beliefs or evangelicalism or what people perceive to be moral? I just wholeheartedly disagree with that. And on the other hand, the point I also made in Pause with Sam J was that, hey, if we're talking about reducing abortion, if we're talking about reducing the need for abortion and the need for mothers or potential mothers and women to even turn to a Planned Parenthood as an option, is we should make sure people know that there are people willing to adopt their baby, whether that be, a single mother, whether that be a heterosexual couple, whether that be a homosexual couple. So that was the other point I made there. I don't think that Republicans should be, pro-life and anti-gay couples or single people adopting children.
Well, right, exactly. And that's a criticism a lot of pro-life people run into, is that, okay, well, you're cool with preserving the life of the child, but then when the child's born, what kind of policies can we support that would place that child in a loving, caring, safe, supportive home? And being more open and willing to accept gay couples, or just all those things you mentioned, would be a step in the right direction there for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's another thing that I really struggle with seeing, and I see this way too often with people on the right turning their nose up at gay issues and still expecting to pull gay conservatives into the movement. I don't know how people expect to win if you're alienating an entire group of people. I know that people think that, being LGBT or gay is like 0.01% of the population, but it's really not. It's a lot of people that people don't realize fall into that category, or even fall into the category of being an ally of people who are gay. So it's crazy, because I saw this whole drama where people who Scott Pressler, who's a Republican activist who was friends with, it was like Lauren Witzke and some other very ultra trad right type of people were talking crap about him basically on Twitter, saying that he shouldn't be part of the party and all this kind of stuff, when he has like single-handedly registered like thousands of Republican voters for them. So it's like, do you really care about what people do in their personal lives that much, to the point where you're willing to lose thousands and thousands of voters? And it's not just activists like Scott, because every voter is really valuable. So even if it's this one gay voter who is turned off by the message, that is detrimental. And so when people are saying, well, we just don't want the party to be like that, we'll win off of principles. No, you will not. No, you will not win off the principle that being gay is should be illegal, or gay marriage should be legal, or it's like some cardinal sin or something that you should be talking about in politics. You are more than welcome to believe it's a sin in your personal life. You're more than likely to post about it on social media, talk about it in church, do whatever you want to do. But when it comes to politics, when it comes to deciding who is in or out of the party, or deciding what is or isn't legal, that should just be a non-issue to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I need to find out what kind of shampoo and conditioner Pressler uses, because his hair is beautiful.
It's awesome.
That needs to that needs to go on the record right now, Olivia.
Make a bundle with it at this point,
Yeah,
because I don't know how he does it. I don't know.
Yeah, just his hair and his cowboy boots alone could get me to go MAGA in 24 and register, like no problem.
Literally, that man registered me to vote, and I was like, Scott, I'm an independent, but just because you drove out here and your hair looks good, I'm gonna vote for Trump just for you. But I mean, that basically is what happened. He really did register me to vote, and actually, he was very nice, because he goes.
Have you met Scott?
Yeah, we're friends.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He did register me to vote, and you know how he goes around registering Republicans, and while he was registering me to vote, he was like, girl, I know you're independent. You don't have to check Republican. I get it. And so we registered me as an independent. So shout out to Scott for that, because he's not really like a Republican shill that people think he is. He really does care about people, people voting and being involved.
Well,
and all that kind
yeah,
of
he
stuff.
backs it up with action too. He's out there helping with neighborhood cleanups and that sort of stuff. And he actually gives a damn. So that's so much more than your online trolls and your armchair critics can say. He's actually going out
there. We met like in 2019, I think, when he came to Maryland for the Baltimore cleanup he organized. So I went to that. That's where I met him, and we've been friends since then. And he's just always been very genuine and very nice guy.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I love seeing his stuff. I follow him on Twitter, and I hope to run into him one day. Maybe he'll come up here to New Hampshire, where we still have our outsized influence with the New Hampshire primary. Mm-hmm. Although our long-running Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, is retiring, and that guy's been a warrior to help us keep the first in the nation status. So I'm hoping whoever we get in next as our Secretary of State will still be willing to go to bat for New Hampshire like that, and make sure that we stay first. And we need to get rid of the Iowa caucus altogether. I mean, that was a shit show with this last time in 2020. With Buttigieg and Bernie. I mean, I'm going to come right out and say it. I think Bernie won that thing fair and square.
Yeah. I mean, I did see. I'm not super like in touch with what goes on in the Democrats. To be honest, I'm like, you know what, y'all want to cheat each other? Go ahead, go ahead. I don't care. But on some level, I'm like, I have felt bad for Bernie. I mean, I felt worse for Bernie in 2016. To be honest, that's when I really felt bad for Bernie.
Yeah, that's one of the jokes I tell when I do any of my Donald Trump shows. I go, boy, I got to tell you, Bernie Sanders, no one has been screwed that bad by the Clintons since Monica Lewinsky, quite frankly. Okay,
Oh my
that was
god,
a
that voice is so
that was
good.
Olivia, excuse me, the terrible screwing. Okay, Crooked put her fist right up Bernie's ass, and Bill put it right down his throat, and it was a disaster, total
Wow,
disaster.
even the hand gestures are on point.
Yeah. I mean, I've been professionally impersonating Trump for 6 years. This is like my 6th year doing it, where
Wow.
people pay me to be Donald Trump. So I don't know if you know anyone who
Okay,
has
so
a.
just do that full time. Don't do. You don't have to do this full time. Do Trump
Well,
impersonation
that
full
that would
time.
be part of it. I mean, the gigs. So during election cycles, the gigs are very steady. Like in 2016, I was literally dressing like Donald Trump 1, 2, 3 times a week, and getting paid good money to go to events as him, and it's led to a serious identity crisis. You know,
Wow.
sometimes I don't.
You're like looking in the mirror. You're like, who even am I anymore?
Sometimes there is no Eric Jackman anymore, Olivia. There is only Donald Trump. You know.
It's like in Spider Man the Green Goblin. He just like switches between his personalities, and when he
Yeah.
listens.
And when like I'm around family members I know that hate Trump or like really triggered on them, that's when like, and if I've had a few beers, that's when we really have fun, you know,
Oh,
because my mom side of the family are from liberal Massachusetts, and they're just basically all vote blue no matter who, type Democrats, old school. So um, even though I've made incredibly sharp criticisms of Trump, and there's a lot of things I don't agree with him about, there are things I like about him, and I get the biggest kick out of the guy. Like, I absolutely love how he treated Jeb Bush and the Republican establishment, and then Hillary during the election. Like, I think that's some of the greatest political theater that will ever happen in politics anywhere in the world, especially American politics. But yeah, I'll troll and I'll just do Trump impressions. And one year, I have a twin brother, Mike. He wanted to do the stream tonight, but he had to work late today, unfortunately. But that's his fault. He's losing, Olivia. He's a loser. That's his fault.
wow.
Yeah, that's his loss, quite frankly. But one year, to troll our family, our Christmas card was me and Donald Trump next to each other, because I've met him a few times and I got a picture with him. And then the other side was Mike with Lindsey Graham at a New Hampshire Republican Christmas party, and that was our Christmas card. And we just said "Happy Christmas" from Eric, love Eric and Mike, and that definitely triggered some family members. But it was fun, you know.
See, I don't enjoy triggering my family members like a lot of people do. People are always like, does your family get bothered when you talk about politics all the time? I really don't talk about politics ever with my family, which is kind of funny.
Yeah. So I mean, right, and that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. Obviously seeing you becoming a personality and getting a bigger following and more well known. I mean, what does your family think overall about that?
They don't care.
They're,
They don't
they're not
care.
they're not like, yeah, Olivia, we're proud of you, nice job, or they're just indifferent.
Mm, it's I don't know. We just don't talk about it very much.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the paper here in New Hampshire a bunch of times for my Trump stuff, and my mom will see it. She works at a local school, and her coworkers will see it and be like, she's from Boston, so she's got a wicked Boston accent. She'll be like, my colleague saw you in the paper there dressed as Trump. I'm like, are you proud, mom? She's like, I'm a proud mother. I'm like, at least I'm not in the fucking crime log. I'm not in there getting arrested for
It could be
stuff.
worse. It honestly could be worse. There's been times where my parents have been like kind of confused, and I'm just like, I could be like pregnant and doing drugs right now. Like there are so many worse things I could be doing. Like in my age
Nice.
group, I could be at like passed out in the basement of a frat house right now. So you guys got to chill on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, as to like how much they care, I mean, like my mom this on Facebook. That's basically the extent of it.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, my mom, I don't think even knows how to turn on a computer, so she's just kind of learned how to use a cell phone the last couple of years. But she's always been supportive. I mean, I've always done theater and acting, and comedy and impressions going all the way back to like middle school. I used to do Shakespeare festivals, and my brother and I would impersonate our teachers at the talent shows in front of the whole school. So that was kind of how we
So
we
you
got.
guys are just impersonators. You guys are good at doing voices and stuff.
I'm going to go ahead and say right now, my brother does the best Alex Jones impression in the whole
I
world.
have to see that one. I have to
Yeah,
see that one.
I'll send you some videos after we do our stream, and there's Robbie and Abby Martin, Empire Files, Media Roots.
I do know Abby Martin just because of the read. I don't think I know Robbie Martin.
Yep. So Robbie's her brother, and they do a great show called Media Roots together. And we've had Robbie on our show a bunch of times. We've had Abby on, and they were celebrating their 10-year anniversary of Media Roots. And anyone with a sense of humor gets a kick out of Alex Jones. And Mike did his impression for Robbie, and Robbie loved it so much he hired Mike to record like a 3-minute monologue as Alex Jones for their celebration.
Oh
And
my god.
I'll send it to you. And they put it on their Media Roots thing episode celebrating 10 years, and like Abby and Robbie were just cracking up, and people in the comments were like, why the fuck are you platforming this guy? He's a psychopath and a lunatic. We hate Alex Jones. Like, they legit thought it was Alex Jones.
And they were
On
mad about it?
Yeah, they were like flipping out about it, and it's like,
Well, if I
come on.
got a little endorsement, a little clip of audio from Alex Jones, like I feel like my audience would just like love that,
Oh,
honestly.
it's a life defining moment. I mean, I went to the RNC in 2016, and I ran into Alex Jones out there, and his security. So when I met him, he had a couple of security guys with him. I did my impression for him. I said, "Hey guys, we're having a good time out here at the RNC. We're taking on the deep state. We're supporting Donald Trump. We're gonna end tyranny in one world government. Infowars.com." And they really liked it, and they got a kick out of it. So they called Alex over, and they said, "Dude, you got to hear this guy's impression of you. It's funny." And I did it for him. And Alex was like, "You got to come up in front of everybody here with me and Roger Stone and do your impression." So there's a video of me next to Alex Jones, and then Roger Stone is next to him, and I just go on this like minute diatribe as Alex Jones with him right there.
Wow.
And he
You're
called.
just
He called.
living the dream.
It was that's peak Matrix, like, for that to happen. So that
See, I
happened.
feel like I have to start like impersonating people on the right because I really have no desire to meet Kamala and do my impression for her. Like, in a bit. So.
Yeah. That's what I hear. I hear you do a great Kamala impression. That's
I
what I hear.
can't. I feel like it's different though. I don't think I'm like a really good impersonator in general. I think I just look like her, and so that's why I was able to do it. But I can't. I feel like I don't really have her voice. I'm not good at emulating voices. It's just in the clips I've done, I've just gone through a lot of effort, like to like straighten my hair and like look like her, and so people just kind of forget I don't really sound like her. But I'm not like a really like. I would call you like an impersonation artist. Like you can actually do people's voices, and I can immediately tell who it is. You know.
Well, thank you. I'm honored by that. Yeah.
You're welcome.
The voices, yeah, it's always just been something I love to do. And yeah, with the Trump thing, is I've been doing it for a long time, and Trump himself really helped put me on the map. He similar to what happened with Alex Jones in early, when was it? It was the night before the New Hampshire primary in 2016. So it was February of 2016. I went to one of Trump's rallies up here in New Hampshire it was called the Verizon Wireless Arena with 5,000 people. And I was dressed in full character as Trump because this t-shirt company had hired me to go there to promote their t-shirts that had a cat that had Trump's hair on it called Trumpy Cat. Trumpy Cat was a great shirt, Olivia. It's a great shirt.
Wow.
And I was in the back of the crowd, and Trump was on stage, and he saw me and pointed at me and called me out in front of everybody and called me to the front of the stage. And that's a watershed moment in my life, Olivia.
You're really just living the dream. That's amazing.
That was peak Matrix, and he got a kick out of it. He didn't have me executed or beheaded, so that was good. And
Good.
he said, "Hey man, congratulations! I hope you make a lot of money doing this. That's great." And I took
Wow.
the king up on that.
You know what? One thing about Trump is he is willing to share the grift. He is willing to share
Oh,
the grift around.
if you got something to offer, or I mean, he wants loyalty, he wants omerta. He's a mob king. He's a New York area mob boss and a mob king.
Teflon
You got
Don.
Yeah, he really is. Hey, look, before I was a Republican, all the rappers wrote about me in their songs. They wrote about Trump money and Trump bitches. I mean, what the hell happened? What the hell?
That's one thing that I would always point out because in the beginning when I first like came out like publicly and supported Trump, people were like, "He's racist. He's racist. Like, what are you talking about? The black community don't fuck with him no more. We don't fuck with you no more." I was like, "What are you guys talking about?" He's like in all these pictures and all these songs, all these rappers. He was literally cool until like he was cool all throughout the 90s. He was cool until he like wasn't a Democrat anymore. That's basically what it was.
Right. No, he's a legend. My brother-in-law is from Nigeria, and one of the first times I met him, he knew about all my Trump stuff, and that I do the impression professionally, and he's like, "Oh man, I love Trump. He's a fucking gangster. I love him." And I'm like, "I like this guy. I'm glad you're my brother-in-law now."
I swear, it's like people who are not even from America who look at him as a cool guy because they don't care about American politics. They just remember like billionaire, playboy, real estate mogul, guy from The Apprentice, guy who makes, funny tweets and funny videos. They don't care about American politics. It's like the people who are so brainwashed here by the media into hating him for all the wrong reasons. It's like if there's people I know who hate him for valid reasons, like Reed Coverdale, he'll criticize Trump for very valid reasons. I'll be like, yeah, Trump was wrong for banning bump stocks. He was wrong for that. Like there's definitely things he was wrong on. But when I'm talking to people who are like, well, Trump's racist, then I can't take you seriously. Then it's like, okay, well, I have nothing else to talk to.
Right. He's like, "Look, I marched with Al Sharpton. Okay, no one's done more for the blacks than Trump. Okay, they love me.
No one.
They absolutely love. No, Abe Lincoln got nothing on this. Okay, he was a loser and low energy compared to what I did. Okay." But yeah, it's a cognitive dissonance, and it's just an easy thing to yell about people that you don't agree with or don't like. You just yell those things, and if you yell it enough and say it enough and repeat it, oh, it must be true, you know.
They're still
Oh,
talking about it years later. Anytime someone brings up Biden, anytime I bring up Biden, and people are like, but Trump, but Trump. And it just goes to show the cognitive dissonance was so strong that it is now overtaking any criticism of their party. And it's just like, my opinions have changed. If you would ask me, like, do you plan on voting for Trump in 2024? Answers no. There are too many things that I felt uh that I wanted more from him. I wanted him to pardon Julian Assange. I wanted him to work on decriminalization of marijuana more than he did. He was talking about these things. There was rumors about these things. Maybe he would have done it in his second term if he had gotten elected, but he had the chance to do it when he did, and when he was in office, and he didn't. So he did leave much to be desired for me. So yeah.
yeah. I mean, finally, I saw someone ask him about it. Candace Owens asked him directly, like, "Dude, what the hell with Assange and Snowden? What happened there?" And it was a bullshit answer that he
Bullshit.
gave.
He literally said, well, I thought I'd leave it up to the courts. I was like, when has anyone ever said, I'll just leave it up to the courts? Like, that's your job. You
Yeah,
can't just leave it up to the courts. What are the courts going to do? He's
nothing.
nothing. The courts are
Yeah,
not going to do nothing. And I
no,
think he knows that. And I think he was threatened. I for sure think he was threatened
I
because he's pretending now that it's something that he didn't really feel that strongly about. But I think he did originally.
yeah, I agree with that 100%. I had former CIA officer John Kiriakou on my show, who blew the whistle on waterboarding and torture, and went to federal prison for probably close to 3 years for doing that. And I asked him his take on that. I'm like, why don't you think Trump helped Assange and was more supportive? Because arguably Trump wouldn't have won without WikiLeaks. I mean, I remind people of that. Without the information and the full-on exposure of how we all knew how horrible and corrupt and rotten the DNC and Podesta and crooked Hillary was, but having all the emails was like the nail in the coffin. But I said, why do you think Trump didn't go the distance with that? And I don't know if he had it from someone or where his information for that came from, but he said, from what I understand, this was all going on when Trump was seriously thinking about doing it. This was when the second impeachment was happening. And Mitch McConnell called Trump and basically said, if you do anything to help these whistleblowers or WikiLeaks or Assange, we'll go ahead and impeach you in the Senate. We'll convict you in the Senate for
Yeah.
impeachment. So, like you said, threat. It could have been that threat. It could have been a threat from the intelligence communities. Who knows exactly what it was? Something probably spooked him, and at the end of the day, it wasn't worth it for him to do it.
I understand that, and it's like depending on what he is starting with, I don't know what he was starting with. I can kind of see maybe why he said that. It was still a piss poor excuse, but on other things, not taking care of Fauci when he had the influence, when he had the power to do so, and in that Candace interview, she was talking. I think she brought that up too, or like at least the vaccines, and he is still just kind of like being like, woo, 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 like we got the vaccines out. These are the Trump vaccines. And like his base is totally not receptive to that at all.
He gets
And
booed.
so I'm not saying he has to follow the crowd. I'm just saying that if people think that, the same people who voted Trump in the first time are all going to be on board for the next time he runs, if he runs, that's not going to be the case. And the way he managed COVID, and the way he, let the states get locked down, and kind of, put us to where we are today. Obviously things are worse under Biden, but he didn't do much to stop it. So yeah, there's that as well. And then of course, his things with the Second Amendment. Obviously he was more pro 2A than the other option, but just not to the point where I wanted him to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I've heard that criticism from a lot of people who that's one of their more important issues. So I mean, handicapping 24 a little bit. I mean, what do you see happening playing out? Do you think it's going to be a big Republican primary, or do you think the emperor runs again and just clears the field, or does it come down to him and DeSantis? I mean, what is your gut telling you what might happen there?
I can't picture DeSantis running against Trump. I think that it'll come to a point where if they both end up running, DeSantis will drop out at the request of Trump's team at some point. I can't see them being like, at the end of the primary together, because I think that what'll happen is Trump will say, hey, it's still my turn. You got the next one. That's just what I think will happen. And the DeSantis base is very still much heavily MAGA. There are some DeSantis people who are, anti-Trump and say, we're done with Trump. We're going to move on to DeSantis. He talks better. He has better policy, blah, 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 blah. But there is so much overlap there that even though DeSantis is very good, I don't really trust these, are, very good in the party. I don't trust these polls that say that it's going to be like a landslide, or that it's really set for DeSantis in the Republican primary. I do think that if Trump runs again, he'll probably win the nomination.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think it's.
I don't think it'll be super close. Though. I don't think it'll be as close as people would think, and that's my point with the vaccines thing. But I think that a lot of people might have my mindset that Ron DeSantis is a good governor of Florida, and he should stay governor. I don't want to see President DeSantis. Maybe that's controversial to say. I don't want him. There's several things that I have issue with him on that doesn't have to do with COVID. That if we gave him, federal power in the presidential office, then it would just kind of be a shit show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if he's ready for a full national campaign like that, and how popular he actually really would be outside of Florida. A lot of that could be
him in charge of foreign policy. That's my thing. Like, I'm like, if you're keeping Florida safe, you're keeping Florida, free from lockdowns. We don't have crazy marijuana laws there. It's a little bit more legal there than other states. I'm like, cool, cool. You can have guns in Florida. I'm like, cool. Keep Florida a free state. But when he's doing behind the scenes saying that Florida is the most pro-Israel state, and that we're going to ban BDS, and that we're going anti-Semitic speech, and I'm just like, I don't know where your loyalties lie, sir. So if he was in a position higher than governor, I just wouldn't want to see him making foreign policy decisions.
Yeah, no doubt. I have no doubt if he was the president, he would carry on the acquiescence to Israel and whatever they wanted, just like Trump did. I mean, Trump gave them everything. He had the friggin' embassy built and the capital moved, and nothing with settlements. I mean, I always joke with Reed that when he had Netanyahu to the White House for the first time, they were doing a joint press conference. And like Trump was like a little kid. He looked over at him. He's like, "Our relations are going to be great, but maybe you could stop with the settlements a little bit. We could pause those a little bit." And then like Netanyahu looked like he was going to bite his head off, and Trump was like, "Oh, he didn't like that. He didn't like that." So I see DeSantis not maybe even being worse, like you mentioned the BDS
thing. DeSantis was worse. Yeah, he goes through a lot of trouble at inserting Florida into international conflict. I'm like, why does Florida care about Palestine versus Israel? I don't know. I don't think a United States state has to have an official position on that, much less be creating legislation based off of that. So when he does stuff like banning Ben and Jerry's being sold in vending machines in state buildings, I'm just like, okay, did we really need to go through the trouble of doing that? Does that send the right message? Oh, well, it's because Ben and Jerry's doesn't sell ice cream in Israel. Okay, why am I supposed to care about that? And why are you impeding on my right to buy Ben and Jerry's in a vending machine now? So that made me, and so when it's like when he's doing petty stuff like that, it makes me wonder what he's going to do with a launch button on his desk. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. Well, luckily Trump always hit the Diet Coke button and not the launch
Yeah,
button. You know,
that's true.
just bring me my Diet Coke,
I
please.
love
Thank you.
that also. I find that to be like one of the most fascinating, like, innocent fun facts about the Trump administration, that he literally had a Diet Coke button.
Yeah. Oh no, the Sultan. He loves his aspartame. He just can't.
And
He's
also
totally.
the fact that he's like a Diet Coke slanderer. He would always say, "I've never seen a skinny person drinking Diet Coke," but he loves Diet
Those,
Coke.
those tweets are the best. Well, hey, he lives up to what he said in his tweets. You know, because
That's true.
he's a
I,
thick daddy.
he's you know what? He is a self-aware man. He was
Yeah.
just he was looking in the mirror when he tweeted that. He was like, "You fat piece of shit." He was tweeting this. He was tweeting this while he was drinking Diet Coke in the mirror.
Oh, yeah, he's a thick daddy. When I met him in person, he's got a big old butt on him. There's no denying
I,
how thick he is.
that's crazy because I've seen him in person too, but that was not something I took notice of.
Well, to really just get the full impression and everything, I had to look at everything at all avenues, and plus you notice it. He's thick with three C's.
Okay, well, I'm glad I now have that information.
It's important information. Um, and I want to ask you, the New Statesman put out a piece from Ian Higgins. I don't know, a couple weeks ago, saying, "Is Tulsi Gabbard the GOP's dark horse?" So I hear this a lot because I worked on her campaign for a year, and she's a friend of mine. I was a big supporter of her 2020 primary campaign, and so many people were like, "Is she gonna? She should be a Republican. She should leave the party. She doesn't have a chance as a Democrat anymore." What do you think about Tulsi Gabbard, and what would you think about her leaving the Democratic Party and running as a Republican in 24?
The last thing the Republican Party needs is somebody who is also not very consistent on Second Amendment issues, and is also, I don't think the Republican Party needs to go more economically liberal or populist. I know that that's what a lot of kind of like people who have kind of split off from the MAGA movement are saying, "Oh, we want a more populist Republican Party. We don't want a public Republican Party that is all free market capitalist and gun, gun, gun." I disagree with that. I like Tulsi as a person, not so much as a politician, but sometimes she does have her moments. I really enjoy following her on social media and seeing her piss off Democrats. That's something I enjoy. But I would like her to continue pissing off Democrats. I don't want to see her, make the Republican Party, more anti-gun or more left-leaning fiscally, because that's what she is. And, obviously, I've talked to Reed about his time, volunteering and working for Tulsi, and he talks about how she was horrible on gun control, and she got better as time went on, as he made more suggestions to her, but she hasn't, fully turned around on that yet. So I would just not like to see that be brought into, the conservative movement. While I am, kind of a fan of hers.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. She's done plenty to piss off Democrats and kind of show her independent streak, which is what I really admire about her and like about her and what she did in her time in Washington and Congress. So, yeah, I think yeah. Ultimately, though, if Trump does run, I think he clears the field and there won't be a primary. And
Mm-hmm.
do you think Brandon makes it to run again, or do you think they're going to do something to get rid of Brandon and also get rid of Kamala and
Mm,
clear the way for Mayor Pete from transportation?
I don't know if, like, I would say he won't make it, like, as in he'll pass away before then, but I think that he won't medically be. I mean, he's already not medically good to fit to
He's
be
a
president.
zombie.
Yeah, so I think that they'll see that next time around. Jill's gonna, as she's changing his diaper one evening, she's gonna be like, "Brandon, I don't think you should run again." And then he's gonna say,
I mean,
"I thought Kamala was president." And then they'll have some ice cream and then they'll go to bed. So that happens, but I really don't want to see Kamala Harris. Although the grift money from impersonating a president does sound kind of amazing. So
yes,
and I
I'm
think I'll
calling it
be
right now.
too.
If Olivia, if we had a Trump versus Kamala thing, you and I could bring the show on the road and
Oh my
do.
god!
We could
If those two made it to the debates, we gotta do parody. We gotta do a parody.
together, Olivia. The grift that you and I could come up with would be unbelievable. It would be almost as amazing as Trump steaks, Trump wine, Trump vodka, and Trump the game. Quite frankly, okay,
Yeah.
it
Okay.
would be it would be unbelievable.
I think we gotta do it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun being Trump because I performed for people that hate him, that love him. that don't care, like everything in between. And you do get some people that are like, they actually look at you like you are actually Trump, and they can be pretty nasty. Which is,
Wow, really?
yeah.
Do you get like booed sometimes?
Yeah, I get booed. When I go to like big events, like, I'll go to his rallies. If there's protesters there that are anti-MAGA, they're just horrified. They just look at you like you're Satan, and like you're the worst person in the world, and they project all of their hatred right onto you, which is funny. But I get a kick out of it. People, we just can't really take it. So we can't take. Donald Trump was president for 4 years. We can't take shit too seriously.
Yeah, I mean, especially I have to think about that because I grew up like not watching The Apprentice. I was too young for that. But for people who grew up like during the 80s and 90s and saw Trump like rise to fame doing something completely different than politics, and was kind of a boy billionaire type character, reality TV star, and then be president. It must be hilarious because I just grew up knowing him as like real estate guy. People think he's racist and he's Republican, and he was president for a while. No, he's not. He was a funny president, but I kind of knew him more for his tweets. Not really like The Apprentice show or any of his like personality before he ran.
Yeah, no, he's a lot of fun, and like I said, I'll always be happy. It was Hillary. Hillary's not going to ever be president, and it was Donald Trump that stopped her from being president. So I'll always appreciate that about him.
That's true.
That was incredible to see that happen, because everyone was like, no, Hillary's going to win, even after the Access Hollywood tape came out with Billy Bush, and they're like,
Well,
it's
because
over.
people are such hypocrites. People will listen to like WAP and be mad that Trump said grab her by the P word. Are you kidding me? Like, are you really kidding me? Oh, well, a president can't say he wasn't president when he said that. This was years ago. Are you saying that you've never said anything vulgar in your life? Like, stop lying. Literally stop lying. People are like, oh, well, he's just calling them locker room talk. Is he saying that's how all men talk? Yes. All men do talk like that. And let me tell you a secret. Women talk like that too. Okay. It's really, I don't know why people clutch their pearls at that, especially seeing like the things that happened that transpired during those 4 years, and now seeing how politicians lie and make up complete bullshit stories all the time. And we're mad that he said you could just grab him by the P word years ago to Billy Bush. Oh, well, he's a misogynist. He's saying he assaults women. He said they'll let you. They'll let you. He said nothing about forcing himself on anybody. So there's that too.
Yeah, he's like, I'm automatically attracted to beautiful women. I just start kissing, and when you're famous, they let you do it. They let you do it. Yeah, him and Billy, they were having the time of their lives on that bus, And
then Billy leaked it. Isn't that how the media got a hold of that tape?
That's a great question. I thought I remember hearing something about a grandson or a relative of Jimmy Carter working for one of the networks, hearing about it and being involved in that, but I'd have to double check that.
You know what? Maybe I shouldn't claim that Billy leaked it. I just kind of assumed that, but I thought that's what the story was.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, well, Billy Bush suffered pretty seriously from that. He had to leave his job, right? I think.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And I was always saying, well, look at Trump, man. He brought down yet another Bush in this campaign cycle. You gotta love that.
Gotta love.
I'm the great bushwhacker, okay?
He's like,
and I'm the last.
He's like somebody's grandson or somebody, right?
Yeah, Billy Bush is first. I believe he's first cousins with George W. Bush and Jeb.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Part of the Bush mafia.
Got you. There's too many Bushes. Get them out of politics. Oh. Now there's like George P. Bush down in Texas. I'm like, get out, bro. I don't care that you're. I don't care, unless it's Jeb.
Yeah, well, Jeb's just. It'd be fun to be Jeb. It'd be fun to see him be a punching bag again in another cycle. But I met Jeb a bunch of times up here in New Hampshire, and what a dud! Just you didn't even create a persona. Clap, please clap. Please clap. Like, he didn't even try to create a persona like his brother did, his cocaine snorting, drunk driving brother with the Texas swagger. I'm from Connecticut originally. I'm a prep school kid. I went to Andover, but I'm a Texan. I mean, at least W had some panache in the character he created. Jeb was just like a stiff. He was just dead on arrival. And Trump's like, boy, low energy Jeb. We tattooed that right to his forehead, and he really did.
Just stood there and took it.
Yeah, it was amazing. It was some of my favorite parts of that. So another cool thing about you, Olivia, that you do is wrestling, and you've been out kind of publicly about the culture war of biological men being in wrestling and trans. I guess you would call them trans women, right? Wanting to wrestle against biological women.
Mm-hmm.
So, what kind of response have you got with that? Have you gotten any pushback, support? I mean, what does that look like for you since you've, obviously um, being known for the wrestling part of your background, and you're a national champion, right? You won a um,
Correct.
right. So yeah, you're pretty well known in the wrestling community. What kind of response have you had with that?
So in the wrestling community, everybody agrees with me because it's people who understand the sport. It's non-athlete, woke soy boys that disagree with me saying, well, why can't it just be by weight class? Why can't it just be by experience? Because even at the same weight, a male and a female will have a different level of musculature, and it will have a different level of body fat percentage, even at peak health. In wrestling, it's actually illegal if you go to weight certifications before the season. It's like illegal, I think, for a woman to go below a certain level of body fat, and men have a different standard, a lower standard for a certain level of body fat that they're allowed to cut weight to. So, by all measures, by all standards in the sport, men will have a strength advantage over women. Obviously, it's not to say that women, it's impossible for women to beat a man. I've known, female state championships. I beat them, but every female who beats men beats more women, and there's no deviant from that. A female who wins a county championship in male wrestling will be like a national champion or all-American level in female wrestling. There is no deviant from that. So yeah, I get called a transphobe, I get called a homophobe. That part makes no sense, but it is what it is. I don't care what people think. It's not out of bigotry, it's not out of hatred. Maybe I do kind of hate people who worm their way into women's sports because women fought so hard to get Title IX. Women's wrestling is still so small that in Maryland, where I grew up, we don't even have women's wrestling teams here. And in other states where they do have, more female teams in, various different sports, now it's men worming their way into those sports when not even all 50 states have female teams for every sport. Like, to me, that's bullshit. So it's a no for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the arguments that Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen in Tulsi made on that bill that she proposed on her way out of Congress, basically saying that um, biological men should not be participating in these women's sports, and any university that receives federal funding would lose their funding if they partake in that.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's another thing. In regards to Tulsi, I like that there are some sensible Democrats left. I don't want to poach all the sensible Democrats and bring them and try to get them to run as a Republican where they would not win as a Republican. First of all, because Republicans would not vote for somebody who is so anti two way like that. And I just wouldn't foresee it ending well for her or the Republican Party. I would like to see more Tulsis in the Democrat Party. I would like to see, more Joe Manchins and more Chris in the Democratic Party. I don't really like this rhetoric that we should be bringing in anyone who's slightly, right of Bernie Sanders into the Republican Party just because they piss off the Democrats. There should be more of them for sure, but keep them over there, because they're still, liberal in many aspects.
right, right, yeah, no, absolutely, I agree, and that was an issue that I don't really give a lot of thought to and think too much about. So it's been refreshing to hear what you say about it, and obviously you have a very unique perspective on it. Being someone who's in the wrestling world and being part of a athletic community that is impacted by those policies. So
Yeah,
that's
it's been something I've been very passionate about just by nature of having to grow up and wrestle boys and getting to college and other tournaments and wrestling females and being like, wow, this is a crazy difference. I'm so glad I have this opportunity now, and I want to afford every other girl in every other sport, whether there's whether the school doesn't allow like girls on the football team or girls on the basketball team. I wanted that to extend to every girl to have that right. In some regards, it's kind of a feminist issue, but not a third wave feminist issue. That's like a first wave feminist issue. We just want girls to have equality. Now it's like women doesn't mean anything. Birthing bodies, menstruators, like all this kind of reducing women to their biological anatomy in an effort to not reduce trans women to their biological anatomy when their biological anatomy is different from ours. So yeah, that's that whole rhetoric in erasing women, in erasing cisgendered. I hate that word now because that's just like people who are normal. I'm sorry to say, that's just people who are born the way they're born and they accept the way they were born. So yeah, that whole issue really just, it kind of grinds my gears.
Yeah, well, I love it. It takes up so much oxygen and attention when things like possible war with Russia are going on right now. We should be really concerned about that. What do you think will happen there with Russia? What are your thoughts on that whole deal?
You know, I'm kind of like on the same side as some more isolationist libertarians or Republicans. Do I care on a moral standpoint about the Ukraine? Of course, I'm against human rights violations. I'm against colonization, imperialism. I'm against a giant country, you know, bullying a smaller country and a smaller group of people and persecuting them. I'm not willing to send other people's sons. I'm not willing to send my brother. I'm not willing to send, you know, our American soldiers to die for them. And I think that's a nuance that many people don't have. Are you saying you don't care about Ukraine? Are you saying no? I'm against Russia. I'm against what Russia's doing, but I'm not willing to people's kids to die for them. And a lot of politicians are, and that's the scary part. So are we going to see that happen? I hope not. But you know, I'm not hopeful because we have a horrible track record of sending people's kids to die for a cause that they don't care about, they don't believe in, or is just not necessary or needed. So I guess we'll just hope for the best. Hope for you know, not another 20-year occupation of a foreign country. You know, let's hope for the best, but prepare for the worst, I should say.
Yeah, yeah, I'm hopeful it's not gonna Brandon's not gonna start all out ground war with Russia because I think that's homicidal and suicidal and just stupid. I mean,
Very
and
stupid. Very, very,
it's
very stupid. That's not our business. I'm sorry to say. Maybe in like the future, um, we would be in a position to help out other countries because I'm not like a Puritan isolationist. Like when people say, "Oh, we should never got involved in World War II," I'm like, "Well, I disagree with that. I think there are some wars that we can and should have been involved in, but not since World War II. To be frank, not since World War II."
well, right.
So, and this is not one of those instances where I can see us being like, "Yep, this justifies it. This justifies, you know, storming the beaches of Russia or whatever." Like, it's not good. It's not gonna. I'm not gonna
Well,
agree with
well,
it.
that's one of the things I loved about Trump was going into it. He had a positive posturing towards Russia and seeking détente and kind of resetting our whole relationship with them. But the fucking left and the hysterics that pushed RussiaGate and that were just like he's a Russian agent and then all this bullshit made it really really hard for Trump to do that, to do any kind of meaningful reset with Russia or any kind of um, push towards détente. So I don't know. I look at two of the world's greatest nuclear superpowers staring at each other with the rest of the world in the balance, and I think we should be de-escalating it, not moving in the direction it's going in. So,
Yeah,
uh,
I wish I would. I kind of do wish Trump is in office for times like these because he can de-escalate a
he
situation like
he
that.
would have brought a few beauty queens over to Moscow to hang out with Putin, and they would have just talked the thing over. Look, I'll bring Ivanka over, okay, and I'll bring over some great beauties. Me and Putin will sit in the hot tub. We'll eat a couple of cheeseburgers, and we'll talk things out, okay?
Just
Okay.
have a Diet Coke.
Yeah, he'll bring Putin a Diet Coke. Exactly. I mean that's what Trump said about Rocket Man. He's like, I mean, look, I'll go over there. We'll have a hamburger together. We can talk things out. We don't need war. Okay. And it was just like so nonchalant for Trump to say that kind of stuff. And I do believe in America's soft power. Like I believe in influencing others and other nations if you want to do that with not through the barrel of a gun, not through dropping bombs and occupying their country and murdering their people, but through great things about America that other countries want to emulate. Whether it's our culture, whether it's through cultural exchange, sports exchange. Um, I don't know if you ever saw the Oliver Stone series where he interviewed Putin. It's in like 4 or 5 parts. Absolutely fascinating. I recommend that for anyone listening who hasn't seen that and wants to kind of understand more about Russia and about the way Putin thinks. The Kremlin gave Oliver Stone unprecedented access to Vladimir Putin, and he hung out with him for I think like 20 or 30 hours, and condensed it down into 4 parts. and it's very interesting. And I like a lot of the work Oliver Stone has done to kind of de-escalate tensions and to kind of humanize Russia, because we've had my aunts from Russia. My uncle married this beautiful Russian woman, and she's awesome. I love her. She's part of my family. And I think a lot of people don't even know Russians or have never met a Russian person, or they've been dehumanized so much by our media that they're just like this boogeyman far off in another country that's interfering in every part of American life, which I think is just complete bullshit and hysteria. So I got to try to stay hopeful, Olivia, about that.
I'm gonna try to.
Well, hey, we're coming up on the hour mark, and I really appreciate you giving me your time and coming on the show and chatting with me. Before we leave here, if you just want to tell everyone where they can find you and what you have coming up for projects or things you're working on and such.
Sure. So I'm on Instagram at rondo.olivia. My last name is spelled Rondeau. Twitter, Rondo Olivia. And then in my bio on both platforms, I have a link tree so you can read my articles, watch my videos, all that through there. I'm also a regular guest on Fox Business about every other week now. So I also post updates on my social media about the exact dates and times I go on. It's usually on Kennedy's show. And yeah, that's basically what I got going on now.
That's awesome. Well, keep up the good work. I like what you do, and I appreciate your perspective and your voice. It's great to have it out there and getting noticed. And I'm committed, Olivia. If it's Trump and Kamala in 24, we're going to bring the thing on the road, and we're gonna grift over $1 million off that thing.
I I love the sound of that. Let's do that for sure.
Yeah, we're capitalists. We love money. I love money. Okay. All right, everyone. Hey, thanks for tuning in tonight. And if you haven't, please hit that subscribe button. Like this video, give it a thumbs up, and please support Jackman Radio on Patreon. It's patreon.com/Jackman Radio. Really working on building that up right now. My goal is to get 600 patrons at $5 a month for this year in 2022. I really want to be able to do this show full time, bring it on the road, interview cool people all around, fly people to New Hampshire, that kind of stuff. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.